Thank you. Hearing Chair Price, Commission members, and Commission staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My testimony will focus on China's space diplomacy. One must first understand the way the United Nations divides space. Civil space topics are discussed in Vienna, Austria, at the Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, or COPUOS. Space security topics are discussed at the Conference of Disarmament in Geneva, Switzerland. China participates in statements at COPUOS that are titled the G77 in China. This group promotes technology transfer and ensuring that developing countries are not left behind in the use of space. It calls for equitable access to space, particularly low Earth orbit, regarding concerns about Western very large constellations, despite China having started launching 2 very large constellations of its own. Overall, China has a fairly consistent approach to COPUOS. It recognizes the importance of and need for space governance and works to see that its domestic activities meet international norms. As for space security, China and Russia argue that weapons placed in space pose the biggest threat and have proposed a weak and unverifiable treaty banning them, while the United States believes it is irresponsible actions and wants internationally recognized norms of responsible behavior to mitigate them. Most developing countries have tended to side with the Chinese and Russian position. China and Russia consistently cite the United States calling space a warfighting domain as evidence that it is preparing for space war. While China and Russia frequently have similar positions in multilateral space security fora, they do occasionally diverge. Last year, reports emerged that Russia is developing a nuclear warhead that could be placed in orbit, which directly contradicts the Outer Space Treaty. In April 2024, the UN Security Council voted on a resolution on weapons of mass destruction in space, which affirmed obligations to the Outer Space Treaty. The resolution was vetoed by Russia. China abstained. When this resurfaced later as a UN General Assembly resolution, it overwhelmingly passed. Again, Russia voted no, while China abstained. There is another place where China and Russia have not been in lockstep. Russia pledged in 2004 it would not be the first to place weapons in space. In 2014, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution which encouraged all states to make this commitment. This has been followed annually by similar resolutions. China has voted yes on this resolution every year and, with the exception of 2021, has also been a co-sponsor. However, it has not made this pledge. Other issues shape China's approach to diplomacy and outreach: space resources and exploration, and counterspace capabilities. China believes the Outer Space Treaty is a cornerstone of legal framework on space resources and wants COPUOS to aim for unified interpretation and applications of it. China does not oppose commercial missions, but wants to make sure that they do not negatively impact scientific ones. The International Lunar Research Station is a Chinese-Russian initiative whose goal is the operation of a research station by the moon's south pole by 2035. 13 states have agreed to participate in it. The United States has its Artemis Accords, which build on principles contained in the Outer Space Treaty and apply them to lunar space activities. 53 countries have signed on to the Artemis Accords. These lunar governance frameworks can be competing or complementary, depending on how relations between the United States and China evolve and how the separate lunar programs fare. When talking about China's counterspace capabilities, much is this derived from Secure World Foundation's unclassified annual report that I edit, Global Counterspace Capabilities and Open Source Assessment, the 2025 version of which was released today. China has engaged in multiple tests of technologies and capabilities that either are offensive counterspace weapons or could be used as such. That said, it is unclear whether China intends to use its counterspace capabilities in a future conflict or whether the goal is to deter U.S. aggression. There is no confirmed public evidence of China using counterspace capabilities in current military operations. One of the questions I was given was how to balance keeping the United States' technical edge while engaging with China. The United States is in the process of hollowing out its current scientific base by cutting funds for scientific research under the Trump administration's Department of Government Efficiency efforts. This is hobbling the United States' technological edge, and if continued, will have consequences for the United States' scientific and technical base for decades. This disruption of federal funds to the U.S. scientific research community will harm U.S. innovation and competitiveness. There is a reason why the United States opted post-World War II to pour money into research. This was a way to ensure that the United States kept its competitive edge against Cold War rivals. By upending this, the United States is opening itself up to being bypassed by institutions supported with more stable funding sources, such as those being funded by the Chinese government. The same thing is happening with NASA. There is a lack of clarity about policies and programs, loss of personnel, and disarray caused by reported plans to move NASA headquarters and distribute staff to other NASA research centers. Federal grants have also been pulled back from existing NASA programs. This weakens the U.S. civil space program, as this level of uncertainty challenges NASA's mission focus. Again, this leaves an opening for China's space program to take advantage of its predictable operating environment to leapfrog the United States. There are opportunities for constructive space engagement with China on overlapping challenges. One is lunar radio communications for position navigation and timing, whose signals are fundamental for orbiting, landing, and surface operations. Engagements with China to avoid interference with each other's signals is crucial for mission assurance. As U.S. satellite operators deploy and operate their constellation, the risk of potential collisions with Chinese operators is growing. Bilateral sharing of information and coordination for operational safety is limited. On the Moon, coordination channels will be needed to mitigate concerns about human safety issues, understanding of intent, and shared hazards of lunar dust. There is one serious speed bump in the way of U.S. China bilateral space cooperation, the Wolf Amendment. Although there is little evidence that it has affected China's domestic polities, it has given Chinese officials a pretext to deflect criticisms about its lack of engagement onto the United States. The United States has long been concerned about China's space programs. There are geopolitical issues, but China is a major space actor and cannot be ignored. While recognizing that China is a competitor, the United States can still benefit from finding ways to engage with China to maintain space stability and to promote responsible behaviors. Thank you.